So I'm so excited to get into this topic tonight, Shirley. We are talking about the healing of the Black community. Why is an apology necessary? And so, we definitely can't begin to have this type of conversation without bringing in someone who has been on the forefront of actions such as these for quite some time. So tonight we have, I guess he's no longer a guest. I don't think we can call him a guest anymore, Shirley. He's been with us several times, always. Eager to have conversation with us and join in. So, before we get any further, let's bring in our guest for this evening. Let's bring in Mr. Ronnie Russell as we talk about the healing of the Black community. Why an apology is necessary. Good evening to you, Mr. Russell.
Good evening. I guess since I'm not a guest, I can go make my own
Okay, wait
plate.
just a second here. We got no sound from you. Let's see what we can do about that.
I can hear him. I'm not sure what it is, but since you're not
Okay,
guess, what'd you
seems like
say?
I
You gonna
lost
make your
my
own
sound.
what?
Shirley, I can't hear you
I
either.
said, since I'm no longer a guest, I guess I have to go make my own plate since I'm not a guest anymore.
No, I serve family members too. It's all
Oh,
good.
okay. Okay.
All right. So can you hear us, Shonda? Hold on for a second. I don't know. Okay, can you hear us now? All right. Well, you might have to drop out and completely and come back in, but we're gonna keep on rolling. So,
Yeah,
Mr.
she can
Russell.
refresh. She can refresh and it should reset her audio settings.
Okay. Seems like we're gonna be doing some clipping with this video, but it's all good.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, Mr. Russell, so this whole topic, healing the Black community, why an apology is necessary or it's needed. So, give us your beginning thoughts on this whole topic.
Uh, for me, it's a little different. I hear Ms. McCoy saying, "Yes, this is so necessary." For me, I would say I'm on a different side of I guess that word necessary. It's like when you have your sit-ins in the past, you've had your marches in the past, you've had your protest in the past. So, I mean, how much of that are we going to continue to do?
Hmm.
Um, and are we going to wait for an apology? It's like having someone who is in a who's in a relationship, and you have someone who is violently taking advantage of them. So, are you going to wait
Hmm.
for that apology? Is that apology going to allow you to heal the bruises that you have taken for over 400 years, the redlining that you're going to take for over 400 years? We can talk about reparations and restoration. I see heard Ms. McCoy saying about that restoration. We just like we have to look at it from a realistic standpoint.
Hmm.
Apology is good, but change is better. You know,
Absolutely.
it's like if a man strikes a woman and he apologized, if he strikes her again, does that apology really mean anything?
Nope.
Um, he has to change. He has to change the way he thinks. He has to change the way he acts. He has to change who he is on the inside, just so he would not violently take rage upon, whether it's a man or a woman. Change has to be made. So we can talk about restoration and talk about apologies all day, but until change takes place, then it's all smoke. I mean, it's all fluff. Policies and voting and all of those things take effect of what change looks like. Um,
Hmm.
just like you have state agencies, you have your hub, which is historically underutilized business. That means historically there is data that is saying these socially disadvantaged communities, black, Asian, even white women, is rolled up in that. So the numbers show that there is a disadvantage within those communities. So therefore, they've made something so-called about that, but it's still the same thing. Just like when the white corporations um, have begun to jump on the bandwagon. Oh, we're going to create initiatives for the black community or create initiatives for black businesses. I mean, it looks good, it sounds good, and it breathes very well. on paper, but how much of that is just so you won't be the only corporation not doing anything about it?
Right.
Again, it's motion, uh, but is it really changed? Is it a part of your operating system, not just a part of this movement? Because for me, movement is like you put four people in a car, you take the engine out of the car, and the only thing that's left is the you take the doors off, you take the engine out. All four of you jump out of the vehicle and push the back of the vehicle, and the vehicle will roll forward because of the momentum that the push has gone. I mean, the push has projected that vehicle to go forward. So then everybody runs and jumps in the car like a bobsled. They run and jump in the
Mhm.
car. The car is only going forward because of the momentum. The movement of the car is going forward. But once that movement stops, it stops. There's no engine, but the engine will change the vehicle, and it would allow the vehicle to run and to go forward. So we really need more so change over an apology. Again, I will stand on the analogy of if a man or a woman strikes the other spouse, apology is only going to go for so long until
Mhm.
the issues that are taking place, the systematic issues that are looked at and viewed, and then there's going to be change after that. That's just my take on it. Apology, we've had apology a long time. Whether it's
Mhm.
one white person, two white people, Asian person apologizing, Hispanic apologizing. I mean, that's good, but let's do something about it. Let's do something different.
Do you think that we, as a Black people, that we have any take in that, in what's needed for an apology? Like, is there something that we need to be doing different on our end, or just waiting for reparations, or should we be taking responsibility? Because I know a lot of people pass the buck on things and
Right.
blaming other people, but no, what did you do? What is your part in the whole thing?
Right. Of course. I mean, we need to look within, internally. What is our responsibility as far as, especially when you talk business? Okay, was your paperwork squared away? I mean, were you just registered as a sole proprietor, but then you wonder why you're not receiving any funds because
Right.
they're not looking at you for your for-profit business because they're the sole proprietor. They may be looking at you as gig work. So looking at it from
Mhm.
that perspective of even apologizing to the black woman and apologizing to the black child, apologizing to someone that you may have hurt through generational curse, and you have begun to perpetuate that, and it continue to go forward. Again, there are some things that we need to address internally as people before we can ever feel that another race or culture should give us an apology, because we need to look within first before we reach out or have, whether it's raw expectations of an apology or just some fictional expectation of an apology.
Yeah,
Just
that's
my thought.
good. Yeah. So, how do we go about looking into ourselves and taking what is needed for our own betterment, our
Mhm.
own, yeah, really our own betterment? I know everybody doesn't come from the same background as we've been saying, but that person who grew up in the projects
Mhm.
and who the only way they know how to survive is by how to survive is by carrying a weapon or selling drugs on the street or whatever the case may be. They grew up in a harder life. That is all they know. Um, what can you tell that person who maybe they want change, but they don't know how to seek that change? What are some of those steps that are needed for that?
Well, I look at it from this perspective. Growing up in a low income environment, not everyone subjects themselves to selling drugs and carrying guns and things of that
Right.
nature, but you are subjective to an environment that you subject yourself to. Um, and then you have to look at, okay, am I going to stay in this position, and how long am I going to stay in this position, or am I going to change the way that I think that is going to get me outside of this environment to put me in a place, in a position to where I can be successful and I can go back and pull my brothers and sisters out, because it's going to have to take somebody to go outside of the norm, to go do something, to go back and get other people because they went
Mhm.
out. Just like you may have um, a generational curse where no one has graduated high school. It's going to take that one child to graduate that goes
Mhm.
back and talk to their siblings or talk to their relatives and say, you know what, stay in school. I want to make sure that you stay in school, so I'm going to be checking on you and things of that nature. So it's going to
Mhm.
have to start in the community. It's going to have to start in the home. It's going to have to start within our lives. It's going to have to start within our relationships and our churches and our synagogues, and all of these places is going to have an internal viewpoint before it ever become external.
Yeah, community, homes, the churches, synagogues. So, transcending religions,
Right.
transcending your immediate neighborhood, transcending the four walls of your home or your church or wherever it is. People are people. We are people no matter
Correct.
where we live, no matter where we go to church or what we worship. We are people.
Correct.
Um, and so breaking down those barriers, those mindsets, because mindset is a man, that's a beast.
Correct.
So um, changing the mindset is first and foremost what is needed. What in your toolbox can you tell the people about mindset and how it gets you either propelled forward or stuck in the past?
Uh, it's about your vision. You know, what do you see? Where do you see yourself going? Who do you surround yourself with? Like for me,
Mhm.
um, which those who know me, I live by three things. I just want to be where I'm supposed to be. I want to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I want to be around who I'm supposed to be around. And anything else outside of that, I'm not concerned about it, because if I have my mission and my vision, then I'm going to hold on to that mission and that vision, and I'm going to stay on course. Oftentimes, we sway to the left or sway to the right to where we become we're knocked off course. So now, how can we go help someone else when we was knocked off course, whether it's through somebody else or someone influenced us to go do something else? So we have to be
Mhm.
on course, on mission, within the vision, because your vision, again, there is a provision for your vision, but are those provisions
Absolutely.
providing for someone else? You have to look at it
Mhm.
from that perspective as well, because if you have gifts and talents, are those gifts and talents providing access to advance someone else? If not, then you need to go back to the drawing board, go back to the table, learn something different, go to traditional school, go to non-traditional school, go get your certifications, things of that nature that would allow those provisions to provide and assist someone else, to give them access to the good things that can be for them, again, before we go out and reach out to someone else and get them to apologize, because they might not see that apology that's necessary, because they feel
Right.
that it's so far removed from their generations. Like for me, I knew my grandfather. I knew my grandfather was a slave. So I know that I'm the resurrection of an old slave seed. So being the resurrection of an old slave seed, that means I would have to had conversation with him, which I did, having a third grade education. So I see everything that I'm doing by standing on the back and the foundations of everything that he did, and the thing that he
Mhm.
invested into my mother, and the things that she invested into us. So that same energy I invest into my children, and I pray that is perpetuated and that continues to go forward with that same type of energy. So it's going to have to be an internal healing. Just
Mhm.
like if you have internal wounds, it's still going to kill you, because
Yeah.
internally it's ruptured. We have been ruptured internally for so long to where is from the outside physical view, no one is seeing certain things. Now,
Mhm.
there are things that may be visible by way of social media, by way of TV, But internally, we should begin to heal ourselves, changing the way we eat, changing the places that we may go, changing to what we hear, changing who we hang around, changing the so much things. But we have internal bleeding, and it's beginning to bleed out.
Yeah, and internal bleeding will kill you quickly. You'll see those signs, and then if you rupture your appendix, if you're not right there where you're supposed to be at a medical center, you're gone.
Yeah,
So some things will kill you faster than others,
right.
coming from the inside out. So Shonda, are you back with us? And then I'll keep talking. I just want to make sure that she's able to hear us.
Yes, I can
Are
hear
you
you now. Can you hear
awesome?
me?
Yes. Have you heard
Okay.
anything we've been talking about?
No, I
No.
have not heard a thing. I spent the last 15 minutes panicked trying to get back in. I don't know what happened when we added Mr. Russell to the broadcast. My
Oh, it
electronics
was my
decided
fault.
to drop out. No,
It's
no, I don't. They did their own thing today. I don't think it's anybody's fault. But I did have a question based on what I just heard. So you said I assume that we're still talking about the community.
Mhm.
Um and that there's internal damage that has been done that is causing us to bleed, and we're at the point where we're bleeding out. Is
Right.
all of that internal damage that we have, is all of that from an external source, or is some of that internal as well?
I would say a combination of both. It's just like when the federal agency had began to give federal assistance by way of welfare, they began to create stipulations on you will be able to keep this money, you'll be able to stay in this home, in this environment, only if you ensure that the father of that child do not live in this establishment. That
wow.
begin to continue to separate
My.
the man and the woman and the man and the child a long time. And it's just like the way people talk. Oh, I'm a single parent. Imagine a man saying that. It's People hear it differently for
Yeah.
some strange reason. Oh, I'm a single.
Mhm.
If I'm saying it, which I had my son. He came to me at 15. But if I'm a single parent, they'd be like, "Oh, what did you do?" Like, what? Why should it be heard that way? Or
Right.
if a woman says, "Oh, I'm a single parent," oh, girl, I understand. What? Again, there has been psychological things that have been embedded, and it has grown and it has developed and overdeveloped. So those things that happen with welfare and the man not being in the home, and it happened for so long, so those are the things that affect us. That's external. But internal, there are some things that we haven't healed from, whether it's through child molestation, whether it's through child abuse, whether it's through domestic violence, that if a child see it, no, that child does not have to actually physically go do it. But if the person, the parent, whether it's the father or the mother, is not sitting that child down and say, you know what, I know you seen that. That is not the way. That's not right. If you feel a certain way, come to me. Let's
Mhm.
communicate. Let's talk about it. How did you feel when you seen that? To get that child to communicate, because it's easy to tell a child to shut up. If you tell that child to shut up for so long, that child is going to have a hard time opening up.
Mhm.
So there are some things that we have done internally, and there are some things that have been externally done.
Mhm. So then, what I hear is a long line of generation after generation of hurt people hurting people.
Right.
And so then not only is an apology necessary for us to like receive in order to heal, but for us to give in places where we may have been the ones doing the hurting to
Mhm.
the rest of our community by what was propagated against us.
Right.
So the black woman needing to apologize and receive an apology from the black man apologizing and needing to receive an apology from the black woman, and then the black parents needing to give and receive an apology from their children.
To me, that's where the apology needs to be. That's where I feel the apology need to lie, because again, those are the things that we are responsible for. It's like you can't get a white man to say, I understand, because he won't understand. He may be able to acknowledge
Mhm.
it or have some sort of empathy, but can he personally relate to the genocide? Can he personally relate to segregation and the effects that happened after integration? Like when the Negro Baseball League took place, like when you have, it's just a fictitious name, you got Tyrone's ice cream shop on Main Street, and then you got Jim's ice cream shop on Fifth. Segregation, I mean integration happens. They like, shoot, I'm gonna go to Jim's, even though they both selling vanilla ice cream, but because you was told not to eat this ice cream for so long, now when they say, okay, now you can go, Tyrone's ice cream shop shuts down because you feel Jim's vanilla ice cream tastes a whole lot better than Tyrone, because you was told psychologically for so long that you can't go eat
Mhm.
at Jim's place. So now you go through
Mhm.
the front door, you go get Jim's ice cream, and Tyrone's like, man, you was eating ice cream for me for a long time. So again,
Mhm.
those psychological things that has happened to us as a result to those particular systematic things that was placed on us. So I feel that apologies need to happen from an intercultural perspective.
Okay. Okay. I can hear that. When you were talking, Mr. Russell, one of the things that I envisioned was, if you look at what it is that most churches believe about what the Bible says, a lot of that comes from this one space and place. Many, many, many years ago, there was a council that came together to decide what it is as a faith that they all believed in, so that they could all be on one page going forward. And so most people that come into the faith now believe in that way that was decided upon by the council, because they came together in agreement. And so I think that just in my personal opinion, and I want to shoot it to you and you tell me what you think about it. I think that around the world that we need to come together as a community, and everybody pick some heads and some leaders that they're willing to have speak for them, and come together as an agreement in an agreed upon place, and say, these are the things that were done to us, and this is what we need to heal from, and we need to come to a collective decision concerning what those things mean to us, and how we're going to move forward so that we can help our children. Not necessarily about helping us now or those of us in the past, because we have to pursue our own healing, but to provide a different backdrop for our children of what it is that they take in. Because you're right, those things are psychological, and they're understood in the way that is unspoken. So as we begin to move through culture, our children will pick up on those unspoken things, but they don't understand why they're there. They don't
Right.
Mhm.
understand how they're affecting them, or even how to change them. And so some of those are as simple as, we don't go to that area, and some of those things are as large as, whole culturally, we're not allowed to be and do certain things. So
Right.
those things I think need to be decided upon by the elders in the community, come together and say, hey, this is what was done, and this is how we feel about it. And then instead of everybody taking, because I think what I hear a lot of times when I speak to different people in the community is, different elders have different perspectives of different things. So then you have factions that break off, and then some of them say, oh, well, slavery wasn't that bad. And then some of them say, oh, well, it wasn't necessarily slavery that was the issue. It was this thing that's the issue. And then, but all of these things need to be discussed and mulled over by us as a people, and then
Right.
healed, so that our children can move forward, because they are living based on the symptoms of the original disease. And it's just
Oh yeah.
festering on it's not even the fact that they're even um touched in the same way by the disease that touched our ancestors. They're being affected by the symptoms of whatever that disease actually was. And then they are now displaying those symptoms in their body and giving it to their children. So it's not even the actual disease anymore. It's just the symptoms that are continuing to live on and on and on. And those can be healed, those can be worked on. But I think that there needs to be a step.
Right.
And so that was one of the reasons why I in particular, not necessarily Prison Break as a whole, but Shonda, why I wanted to have this discussion today, because I want to know, how do we make that step? Where do we go? Who do we talk to? How do we get it out there? And how fast can we make that happen. I have young men that I'm raising. I have three young men, and I want them to go into their relationships being the husband, being solid, being healed and whole, not knowing those nuances for nuances, but understanding where they came from and how they got there, and knowing that they don't have to be like that any longer, like that stoic, silent, accept it all across the shoulders type thing. Like, it's good to
Mhm.
be able to handle things, but it's better to be able to understand what you have to handle and move to your next
Mhm.
point. I want them to be able to do that. So how do we make that step? How do we not infect our children?
Um, that was a mouthful.
I
Um,
know, right? My bad. You can mull it over, son.
um, hmm. It's like when people want you to be emotionally intelligent.
Hmm.
I feel at the same time you should also uh, understand that you should be socially intelligent and culturally intelligent. And when you develop from those terms and aspects, then it does not become a race thing, because
Mhm.
socially it's like studying psychology and sociology. There are parallels, but you have you have different focuses. So you should be socially intelligent. You should be emotionally intelligent, and all of those things. Because now, when we come from that approach, then I'm dealing with Chandra, not the black lady with the dreads, but I'm dealing with Chandra. She just so happens to have dreads. So if
Mhm.
I'm culturally intelligent, then I understand that her dreads is just a part of her. But I should still acknowledge her culture when it comes to how I communicate, when it comes to how I make gestures, when it comes to even how I joke. I should be socially intelligent. I mean, I should be culturally intelligent to know that I should not affect her socially if I begin to push her culture to the side. So now that's how you begin to strengthen those bonds. That's how you begin to change some of the landscape, even at a interpersonal level, at home, like, or at the local level, to where you're voting for someone, or you have these organizations, or you have these churches, whatever it is. If you're developing whatever your level of intelligence is with that person, then you're not trying to separate nor segregate or push that person away or push that person apart. If we begin to understand, just like, I say all the time, people are people. But when we begin to know and understand what people are people actually means, then I think as a people, whether just people in general, but as a people, we understand that we must have social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and cultural intelligence, because that would then change the perspective on how we're going to continue to grow on. It's just like someone sitting with a politician and you say, well, what's your black agenda? We don't have an agenda in our home most of the time. So how can you expect someone who does not have cultural intelligence to develop an agenda for you and your people? So we must have that in internal agenda and development. And then when it is time to have those particular meetings, we're coming to the table from those three spectrums: social intelligence, emotional intelligence, and cultural intelligence. That means I'm at the table, but I should not say anything that's disrespectful to you. Or
Hmm.
I'm at the table
Mhm.
and I should acknowledge why we're at the table to begin with.
Mhm.
Why, if I'm managing my emotions, then I should know that how I'm sending or how I'm receiving the message, I should understand that I have a responsibility to ensure that this is a neutral environment. And I think from
Mhm.
those three perspectives, I think Anytime we have that conversation, I guarantee you there should be a different type of outcome, but you have to have someone who's socially, culturally, and emotionally intelligent to sit at those tables to really begin to create change, and not asking for an apology from someone who's not socially intelligent, morally intelligent, or even
Mm-hmm.
culturally intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
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 That
Just
was
my
Wow, that's
awesome.
good. Yeah. No, I need to chew on that some more because um I think that what I hear there is accepting the differences that are displayed in people as part of their uniqueness of
Mhm.
self versus looking at them as a place for defensiveness or adversity. And so then that requires some overall maturing from people in general, which as we know is very difficult. When you look at psychology as a whole, right, there is a place of autonomy that people should be able to get to where their emotions are able to be separate from others, and that's one of those places that people hardly ever get to. They hardly ever get to the place where they are fully autonomous because they don't know how to separate, because they don't continue the work towards full and total maturity, because we as a people like to um, stay in places where it's comfortable.
Right.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that comfortability in just a moment. But y'all, we have reached the halftime of Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda. You have been tuning in to KRGN 98.5 FM. And we are talking about healing the Black community. Why is an apology necessary? With special guest, Mr. Ronnie Russell. So, if you are listening to us by way of the radio, we are on Facebook Live. And then you can go back and you can look at the beginning of it. You can also go over to YouTube, Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda. So let's jump back in to our topic, um, healing the Black community. So Shonda, you're talking about, what did you say?
I
Comfortability
said,
or
yeah, I said, well, one of the reasons why we as a people, and I don't mean we as in the Black people, I mean people as in the human race people. One of the
Mhm.
reasons
mm-hmm,
why we don't mature past a certain point is because we get comfortable. We think
mm-hmm,
that good enough is the same thing as great sometimes, and
Right.
so we'll stay at good enough
mm-hmm,
because it's serving us here. We can basically get by, with what we
mm-hmm,
want for the most part without any hardships, and we're able to move freely, and we're able to progress in our businesses and in our financial endeavors. And so because we have a modicum of success in these areas, we say, oh, it's good enough, it's fine, I can live with it. And then we don't continue to grow past a certain point. It's very few, if you look at people as a whole, it's very few people in the world who mature to the point that it is that we're talking, that fully autonomous is very few people the world over
mm-hmm.
who get there because they choose. We all choose. We all have choice to make. And so sometimes those are indirect, sometimes those are direct choices, but directly we all have the responsibility to continue our own advancement and improvement. We just don't.
That's true. But why do you think that? Why do you think that is that we get to a certain place and we feel like it's okay right here and we don't push forward past that barrier?
Oh, because people want it easy. We as people want a life that is pain free. We don't want to experience pain or disruption or discomfort or uncomfortability. We don't want to be awkward. We don't want there to be silence. We want to always be with people and still do our own thing at the same time. We
Mm-hmm,
always want everything in the exact perfect and ideal situation. If we wanted that for real, then we have a great deal to discuss with our forefathers because they didn't necessarily want it as much as we do. Now, with that being said, there's no way that we can avoid uncomfortability and awkwardness. It's a part of peopledom, like the world that we live
mm-hmm.
in. This is just what
Part
it
of
is. You're going to
growth.
get. Yeah, you're gonna get it. If you're
Yeah.
if you're at the movie theater and you accidentally drop all your snacks, everybody's gonna turn around and look at you. And it's not because they're looking at you to judge you. They just want to see what happened. They're curious. What was that sound? Let me turn around and look. But we as people will take that personal and say, "Oh my God, they're looking at me. They're thinking that I'm a
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mess up or I'm clumsy or oh my gosh, look what I did." And then we have to mature past that point to know that we all make mistakes and laugh at ourselves and move on. But
Mm-hmm.
because it's common enough, right, that everybody experiences the same thing, we'll just say, oh, okay, well, it's embarrassment, everybody feels it. But you can mature, you can get to the place where you no longer feel that, but we just stop there because it's common and it's easy and it's what we've always done, so that's what we always do. But there's always places of growth. There's always room for growth. Always. As long as we're alive and breathing on this earth, there's room for growth in everything it is that we do. We could never reach the pinnacle. It's the same thing as you've gotten all out of the Bible that you can get. No, it's 66 books worth of living word. You'll never get to the end of all that you can get out of the Bible. You'll
Ever.
never get to the
Mm-hmm.
end of all you could get out of any books, because life and death are in words. So it'll
Mm-hmm.
continue. As long as words are available, they'll continue to give you life or death, depending on what they are. It won't break, it won't stop. So as long as we
Mm-hmm.
have words, there's continuous room for growth and life or even death.
That's good, Shonda. That's so awesome. So, what we speak out of our mouths is important.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Shirley, you're a nurse. You can tell people that past a certain point in that doctor's office, there's little that you can do if the person does not have the will or the desire to keep moving. And if they tell
Right.
themselves they're gonna die past a certain
They're
point,
gonna
then
die.
they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna die, and there's nothing that
Mm-hmm.
you as a nurse or doctor can do about it. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
perfectly healthy could come in saying that I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. And you can do everything that you want to do, Shirley. But as long as they keep saying I'm gonna die, they will die.
Mm-hmm.
Your words, our words have so much power, and we don't realize it. So that's why I think that we need to get to a place where we're speaking common words about our struggle, about our past, reframing it into words of healing, so that we as a people can set about saying these things about ourselves and giving back life into our community, us speaking back life into our own community, into our own children, to our own hurts, to our own damages.
That's good. So, Mr. Russell, what of those common words do you feel that can be spoken into the atmosphere to start that process?
Mm, that's a hard one. Um, I was speaking with someone yesterday, and I told him sometimes the hardest word for a lot of us to actually do is to start, um,
Yeah, definitely.
because the word start, there has to be action with it. Without action being applied to the word start, then it's just a word. You have to add other things to it to complete it. You have to add other things to the word to even make it a sentence. it's 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 looking at things from a personal standpoint, looking at things from a, like what Miss Chandra was saying, like, you know what? All right, cool. When we gonna start? You have to do something after that. So I
Hmm.
think,
Right.
um, whatever it is, it has to start with the word start. I mean, you can research all day. That's good. We've done research. It's
Hmm.
2020. We thought the world, well, people thought the world was ending at from 1999
1999. Yeah.
to 2000. Like, oh, the watches are going to stop.
The
The cable
computers.
is going to cut off. The computer is going
Yes.
to blow up. And people like,
Hmm.
man, you going to work tomorrow? I don't know. And
That's so
and
true.
right. And before, people was talking about, man, there's going to be flying cars in 2020. 2019 happened and 2020 happens. I believe we've had enough research. I believe we've had, not gonna say enough. There's never enough research. It's like learning. I believe we have research. I believe we have seen the goods and the bads. I believe we have seen a lot of adversity. Because to me, as y'all was talking, or speaking, I should say, I broke up the word uh, adversity, because to me, I took it apart as if it was a conjunction, because it said adversity is difficulties and misfortune. But then let's break it up. Adverse, it says preventing success or development, harmful or unfavorable. So we have been hurt for a long time. We have found ourselves at a misfortune for too long. We have been separated from success or development. But then you have to go with Versity. What is versity? It said versity is a collection of varieties. That means now we have to look at it from so many different perspectives. Again, my hurt is not your hurt, but again, hurt people hurt people. So
Mm.
if we know hurt people hurt people, and my hurt is not your hurt, then we should not begin. Again, I'll go back. We should begin to be each other's peace, because if I know that you had difficulties all your life in your development, whether it's mental development, physical development, economic development, all of those things, then I should bring some sort of peace, whether it's through a program, whether it's through an initiative, whether it's through even sitting down and having a meeting. It has to have a starting point. So I think we have to take what we already currently know and just start.
Yeah, so many of us get stuck
Mm.
in on wanting to be perfect before we get started. So all of that got stripped from me, like starting back in 2016 when he told me about the out of the shadows. I had a perfect plan in place. I wasn't gonna start nothing without it being perfect because that's who I was at the time. Um, and everything that I wrote down, God was like, no. I was like, oh, okay. So I can't do that. Okay. So when it came the time of the program, he gave me three very simple things to do. And so I followed the instruction that he gave me. And I can tell you, leaving out of there, it was such a huge weight off of my shoulders, knowing that he did it and I didn't. Then I didn't have to worry about it no more. And just learning to just to get started, just follow the instruction that you're given. Get started. You can always go back and research
Right.
along the way, but get started. And so many of us get stuck in that fear factor. We get stuck in the perfection of it. We get stuck in um trying to make sure that our name looks good, and all of those things. And so it takes a breaking of your own will.
Right.
It takes a crushing of your own spirit so that you know that we are not leading ourselves. Um, and so for me, again, that's what happened from starting 2016. And the more I go on and just follow the instruction I'm given, doesn't matter how crazy it seems to other people, but no matter the instruction that I'm given, how crazy it may seem, is I know for a fact that as long as I follow the instruction, that I'm covered. As long as the instruction is followed, it doesn't matter if it doesn't come out perfect because he gonna make sure that his word doesn't fail, right? First of all, his word does not fail. It doesn't come back void. And so just being able to step out of ourselves, knowing
Mhm.
that we have greater purpose, that the healing, it does start with us. We can't expect everyone else to come and pat you on your back. You're not about to get no pat on your back from everybody. And some of those pats on the back, they are not genuine.
Right.
Those kisses on the cheek, they not genuine. So, but all of those things come together. They all come together. Even Jesus had, he had the 12 disciples, but only three of them was really his ace coons, right? Only three of them got to travel with him close. The
Right.
rest of them was kind of in the outer court, outer circle, if you will. And so he loved them all, but there are some people he took closer with him. And so there's levels to this thing. There's levels to friendships. There's levels to relationships. Everybody can go with you to a certain point, but everybody can't make it to the finish line with you. And so there are seasons for some people. There's there might be a summertime friend. There might be a 20-year friend, but then there's also those lifetime friends that we can lean on and we can glean from, get what is needed and to progress on in life. And he brings us those things when at a point where we are able to receive them. So healing our Black community, taking personal responsibility for our own stuff, right? Um, Learning what we are responsible for, and then learning how to, I'm not gonna say brush it off, but yeah, brush it off, because we all have work to do. And so if we're gonna stay in a certain spot and be stuck, no one else can help us out of being stuck until we realize that we are stuck, and we're willing to start something different. We're willing to start and do something different, be somebody different. So it's all a process. It's all a work in progress. So
Mhm. Shall we keep coming back to this point? I think we have almost for like the last month keep coming to this point where we're working on, or we're speaking about that desire or that need for perfection in a thing. And
Mhm.
we talked about it when Tam came on the show, and we were
Mhm.
discussing, about pastors' kids, and I think we talked about it several times since then as related to taking off the mask. But the reason why I wanted
Mhm.
to bring it up is because the process is one of those places where we as human people, we get impatient. We don't
Yep.
like process, and so we don't like a
Mhm.
lot of times. Um, Starting from the bottom or
Mhm.
allowing a thing to grow over time. We want to
Mhm.
see it come to fruition like right now.
Right now.
Yeah. So like we want to start healing the black community. We want the black community to be healed tomorrow. It needs to be done.
Tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, no, for real. We started today. It needs to be finished tomorrow. We need
Right.
to see the healing. Right. Where is it at?
Mhm.
But there's a process that has to take place. And it's so funny because the Bible tells us that there's a process, and everything in life tells us that there is process, and experience
Mhm.
teaches us that there is process, and our brain functions tell us that there is process. But we don't want to hear nothing about
Mhm.
process, not at all. We are considered God's masterpiece. We've said
Mhm.
that several times. And a masterpiece doesn't occur overnight. It didn't even occur overnight when God did it. When God created the world, it took him 7 days for it to be very good. It wasn't very good on day one. It was just good. It wasn't very good on day two either. It was just good. It wasn't until the end
Mhm.
that it was
Mhm.
very good. At the very
Right.
end, after all the processes had been completed, then
That's
it was
good.
very good. And so it took
Mhm.
piece by piece by piece over the course of the 7 days for it to look the way that God wanted it to look in its fullness and its completeness. And so we
Mhm.
as people cannot go through any less of a process. We have to start with a thing, and then we have to allow it to grow and to change and to build, and for other people to come along and to assist us in that process, and then for them to take their piece and allow their piece to grow and to build and to change, and for other people to come and assist in that process. And then you will have this entire healing that takes place at the end of the process. But that start that Mr. Russell was talking about is so important. So to his start, I would like to add the process in the middle,
Yes.
going through and trusting the process. So number one, you got to start. And then
Yep.
number two, you got to go through and trust the process.
Absolutely. I was pulling up Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and this talks about different times and different seasons, and there is a time for everything. So it says that for everything, there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do people really get from all of their hard work? I have seen the burden God has placed on us all. Yet, God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. That is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 11. That is a real whole mouthful right there in on its own. That some people try to be on one side of the spectrum all the time, but that's not reality. That's not how our brains function. It's not how we were meant to be. So we have emotions and they are needful, but we have to go and know that they are needful and that it is normal to be sad sometimes. It's normal to may feel like you need to cry and at times it's normal to laugh. It feels good to laugh. There is a time for every single thing. And so what he says is that he's made everything beautiful in its own time. So yeah, some things had to happen for something else to be able to occur on the backside. So you can't get the finished product without the starting point, the burning off the coal, if you will, being on that potter's wheel. the purpose of the potter's wheel is to burn off those imperfections. But if you go in gold and get burned, you still coming out gold. And so that's what I would like for people to know, that if your heart is in the right place, if your heart is right, you can go through things and you're still gold. It doesn't matter, the in between, all of that other processes, but there is purpose in the pain. There is purpose in our life's journeys, and it's not for us. It's to help bring somebody else through the things that they are going through, because we can help people, even in the nursing field. I don't have diabetes, I don't have high blood pressure and all these things, but God let me experience something one time where I could really not just, I had sympathy for people who were diabetic before and having to take shots and all this stuff all day long, and having blood sugars that drop and spike and all of those. But I was actually allowed to feel one day what it felt like to have diabetes, right? My blood sugar dropped so low. I could have, if I were not where I was at the time, I would have gone into a diabetic coma. My blood sugar was 30. It dropped off, and it dropped off quickly. And so from that point on, not only can I sympathize with what a person with diabetes feels like, because I felt like I was going to die. It felt like impending doom. And I didn't know what was going on. But now I can really empathize with the person who has diabetes. Why? Not because I have it myself, but I was allowed to go through that process with them, so I can sit in it with the person who needs me in that arena. Does that make sense? You can better relate to somebody when you have gone through something of that nature yourself. It doesn't mean that your experience is the same, because none of our experiences are exactly the same. But he puts us in certain places, situations where we can reach the ones that we need to reach at a specific time. Healing our communities, ourselves, first of all, with getting our own healing. I don't like to say healing ourselves, because we're not the healer. Jesus is the healer. So I don't like to say heal yourself, but he made us to be able to reach in, to pull out what is needed, to come back to him, because he made us. He knows everything about us. And to be able to reach out to not just ourselves and not just our people, not just our own family members, but reach back and to grab somebody's hand and to help them along the way. Not necessarily pulling them, because your arm beat up fell off if you try to pull too hard, but that weight back there is too heavy. We have to learn that some people you can only take to a certain spot and drop them off. And other people, they want to come along, but we have to have that gentle nudging, that gentle reassurance along the way. So yeah, I guess I done got talking now. Now I can talk all day. So I'm gonna shut up. So just learning that process is important. Not having that cookie cutter mentality, not having that what do you call the I can't even think of the word now, but the mentality where somebody owes you something.
Entitlement.
Yeah, don't nobody owe you nothing. No one owes me anything. What are we here for, and how are we going to get to the purpose that we were placed on this earth for? We have to take that personal responsibility for that.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good, Shirley. I want to talk about this time.
Yes.
Yeah, because it doesn't leave. It's the one thing that we all get the same amount of. Like
Same amount.
we all don't. Yeah, no, we all get bodies, right? But women's bodies are different than men's, right? And they do different things. And then even within women's bodies, there are different proportions, different sizes, different this, different that. One thing that everybody gets upon birth that is the same across the board is the time. We all get the same 24 hours in a day. Now we don't all get the same length of time, right? Because some days are shorter than other. Everybody lives to a different age, but we all get the same 24 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So within those 24 hours are all going to be different from day to
Mm-hmm.
day, from moment to
Yeah.
moment, from situation to situation, and circumstance to circumstance. And the thing about time that's crazy is that you can't control it. You
Right.
can't stop. There's no stopping of the passage of time. It's going to go
Mm-hmm.
no matter how much you want to hold on to it. Every mother knows that well.
Mm-hmm.
From the time that baby is born to the time that baby is 18, it's definitely not 18 years. It's not. It's
Mhm.
so short and long at the same time. That 18
Yeah.
years, I remember every single moment of labor with all four of my children. But at the
Mhm.
same time, it feels like it took forever for my children to get to the point where they could be considered adults, right? But it was so
Mhm.
short. I still remember it. No moment of that initial day, that first day with those kids went away. But time, we can't control it, change it. We can't remove it, get rid of it. We can't fast forward it. We can't back it up. After that moment is past, it's past for everyone.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so then
Definitely.
we have to, yeah, so we have to get to the point as people where we're recognizing what time we're in, what season we're in, what space we're
Mhm.
in, so that the actions that we take in those moments, those spaces, those seasons, those times are befitting of what's going on. Because then we
Mhm.
get the fullness of it. So if the time, you said that there's a time to love and a time to hate. So if we're in the
Mhm.
process where the time is love, but that's not the energy that we're putting forth, then we're missing out on the season that we're in.
Mhm.
And then we miss out on the results for that season because we didn't do what we were supposed to do during it.
Mhm.
So it's like if I don't plant corn in March, I ain't gonna have no popcorn when it comes time for movies in September, right? But if I decide that I'm not gonna plant that corn, I'm gonna plant grapes because I want wine instead, then I missed out on the harvest of the corn that I needed to do what I needed to do for that next season because I didn't plant
Right.
when I was supposed to, right? I planted
Right.
something other than what was needed for where I was going.
Wow.
So if I don't recognize what season I'm in, I'm not going to have what I need to go forth into whatever the next season is because I didn't do what I was supposed to do here. I didn't recognize what I was supposed to do here. So I think man, I got some stuff that you want right here. Y'all gonna have to excuse me. I didn't expect for us to go this direction, Mr. Russell. Did you?
So
Was this
no,
your outline?
no. So is the third word time?
It-
Um, let's agree. Can we agree on what the third word should be, time, or do we have something else that should be? So we've got start, we've got process, we've got, so do we have time next?
Honestly, I was afraid what the darn question was initially, and it was my question.
Right. I don't know, to be honest, but I was like, I I absorbed what you said with process because um I love the word learn.
Mhm.
And again, to learn is the process of acquiring knowledge. So then again,
Mhm.
it ties into the process, but it's really development because the definition of development is the process of developing or being developed. But then when you go down to the second definition, it says the process of starting to experience or suffer from an alignment. Well, we take the or off. So the process of starting. So it's kind of in alignment with start, process, and development.
Mm.
So I see that because now you're seeing how it's been stacked. So you have start because you have to start something. You have start, and then you have process. Everybody's going to say, "Oh, you got to trust the process." It sounds good, but after you trust the process, you got to have development. What are your developmental? Where are you at in your phase of development?
While you're
Um,
waiting.
while you're waiting,
Mm, that's
because
good.
again, if
Mhm.
learn is the process of acquiring knowledge, that means you have to start off knowing that you have to learn something, whether it's yourself, whether it's who's on your left, who's on your right, whether it's again emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. I forgot. Emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, or what was the other one?
Social intelligence,
Social
Social.
intelligence.
And then you added more moral intelligence, actually.
moral intelligence. You did
Yeah,
add
And
that
that's
one.
number 4.
You got a
Hmm.
lot of intelligences there, Mr. Russell.
yeah. I
Right.
mean, if you look at it, it's really breaking it down. It's like breaking the word perspective down. So
Hmm.
what are the four layers of perspective? You have your emotional intelligence, social intelligence, moral intelligence, and your cultural intelligence. Because everyone is going to have a different perspective from those particular levels, because now you have to say, okay, which one should I have done different?
Mm.
Which
Reflection.
one, right?
Mhm.
Which one do I really need to pay attention to? Because I probably, I know it was my delivery. So
Mm.
now let me
Yeah.
look at what did I learn from that. And after I learn that process, now I have a new start.
Mm.
New
So then
start.
what I hear is start, process, develop, reflect, repeat.
I think that's it now.
I'm I'm look, wait and then repeat.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Wait, repeat, or restart.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
because
that sounds great.
I think it sounds
It
good too.
sounds like a
I think
manual.
it sounds like a solid outline.
It really
Yeah.
does.
So it's definitely a wash and rinse, um, because all of it plays a part with each one of them. Start, process, development, time learned. Um, is, is weight really gonna be number four?
That I don't know. Shirley put
Yes.
weight on there, but
I
but
put weight on there.
I feel like weight is part of time and learn.
Yeah,
I don't
Okay.
think we need to bullet out weight. I think that's built into
yeah,
to time and learn and develop.
right. Because your development is in your those stages,
Hmm.
and before you go to the next stage, there is going to be a pause, whether it's a tactical pause
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
it's going to be um, a spiritual pause, psychological pause, mental pause, physical pause. But okay, I got it. So now let me repeat my process, or let me restart because I've
Hmm.
I've cycled out.
Yeah, that's
Just
good.
my thoughts.
Well, when you
Okay.
go through the stages of development, right? Like life cycle, you don't just move from phase to phase to phase to phase. Like you go into a phase, you learn that phase, you live in that phase for a little while, you operate in that phase. Sometimes you stay there for a little while, sometimes you go back, sometimes you go forward. But there's always a new beginning after this process, and there's this wait that takes place. Now, either in the waiting, you are either operating in what you have learned in that phase, or you're stuck because you can't move anywhere else. But there's always a process of wait that is built into
Hmm.
each particular phase that we're in. And so then
Hmm.
when you go into that next phase, then you start all over again. And even though it's a new phase, you're still starting again. You're starting
Right.
a
Hmm.
new process, a new development, a new learning in that phase. And so if you have to go back a phase because you didn't get what you needed to get, and you have to restart, right? And then you have to reprocess, yeah, and then you have to
Hmm.
redevelop, and then then you wait, right, in that built-in wait phase, and then you can
Hmm.
either move on from that phase again if you've done what you need to do, or you end up staying stuck or go back. So it's
Yes.
always a
It's the go, the
space.
no go. Yes.
It's always a space in there,
Hmm.
of waiting after it is that you learned what you're supposed to learn and you developed what it is that you're supposed to develop. So that it's what you do in that wait time that makes that wait time key.
Yes.
It's what you do in that
Absolutely.
wait time. Mm.
Yes. Yeah. Um, Definitely. So we are almost out of time. You have been listening to Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda, special guest Mr. Ronnie Russell. We've been talking about healing the Black community. Why is an apology necessary? If you are needed, um, if you've missed any of that, you need to go back and listen to it. There was an outline in there. We're not going to even give you the keys now. You need to go back and listen to it for yourself. But in this last few minutes of time, Shonda, do you have any closing remarks for the people?
Yeah, I missed, and I'm so sad that I missed it, Mr. Russell, what you started or led with, but I will go back and watch it. But one of the things that I want to say before we get ready to go off of here, is healing. You said, Shirley, you don't like to say heal yourself because it's not something that we do. It's something that God does. And that's
When we
true,
allow him.
right? That's 100% true.
Hmm.
But that allowing, we have to pursue
Hmm.
healing. We
Hmm.
as people have to pursue our healing. We have to pursue those intelligences and mindsets. We have to pursue relationship and love. And so if we never take that step, that start in the pursuit of that love or that healing, then we'll never get to any of the other things that we talk about. And so, if you know today, to everybody who's listening and watching, or if you know someone who is in this position, if you know that your relationships don't quite look the way that you want them to look, you know that you've been trying to get, a homie lover friend on the side, and things just ain't working out for you. They don't never pan out right. Right. You've been trying to look at that job, but you keep getting in there and getting into fights with people around you at work. If it seems like everybody's trying to argue with you all the time and they just can't agree with nothing it is that you say, beloved, pursue some healing for yourself. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it is that you've decided you set yourself up in opposition against everybody else, but there's a time for that, and the time for that probably is past. So do some reflection. Take some
Mm-hmm.
time and look at those areas that don't look right, and not right to anybody else, but don't look right to you. And then
Mm-hmm.
pursue whatever it is that you need in order for those things to look the way that you want them to. Again, it's personal. It's personal, and you should make it personal. And it's okay that it's personal. It's not selfish. It's not selfish. It's not self-centered. It's necessary to pursue healing for yourself. So that's all I have, Cheryl.
Thank you so much, Shonda. Mr. Russell, you have any parting words? You have 1 minute.
Wow, I got a whole minute.
You got a
Um,
whole minute.
um, I'm real big on definition, um, and I would say you have to define your healing. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter what definition someone has on how you're supposed to heal, on how long it's supposed to take you to heal. Uh, define your healing and figure out where you at in your stage of healing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
is it just a scar? Is it internal? Is it external? Whatever it is, acknowledge that the hurt has to have a process in order for it to heal. And the healing has to start after you acknowledge that there is a development that you have to do and that you're going to be a part of. And it's going to take time for that development in order for you to get to the point before you're able to restart. So look at your healing and define your healing and understand that the fastest way to healing is to start. I'm good.
That's awesome. So thank y'all for joining us. I do want to leave out of here off the air on tonight with a short prayer. And so, Father, we just come to you, God, and we thank you, Lord God, for all that has been said and done on the airwaves on tonight. God, we ask that, Lord, that you would sit with each and every person here, God, under the sound of our voices, God, that you would reach way down, allow them to know that they are loved by you, God. They are loved by those that are around them, God, and that you are there for them to get the healing that they need. It does not look like anyone else's, God, but you are there specifically for them. And so, God, I just want to thank you, God, for this opportunity, this time, and this space, Lord, to come and to be candid with your people. Thank you, God, for just overshadowing us and allowing us to be open and honest and transparent with the people, God, so that they can get everything that it is that they need. We don't all look the same. As a matter of fact, you made us unique. You made us fearfully, wonderfully made in your image. And so, God, we just thank you, God, for all that you're doing in this season, in this span of time, even through coronavirus, the things that are going on, so that we can sit and that we can get what we need from you. And so, God, I just want to thank you and praise you, God, for all that is occurring. And we give the people back to you, that they will get what they need in this time, in this space. We want to honor you and thank you. In your son, Jesus' name, amen. All right, y'all. I've been listening to Prison Break with Shirley and Shonda, special guest, Mr. Ronnie Russell. We are leaving out of here. The next voices you will hear is none other than Marriage Mondays with the King. Next week, you want to make sure that you come right on back to Prison Break, because Mr. Russell will be here again, um, talking about divorce. So, and how
Oh
it's time
man.
to move on. And so we're going to get on off these airwaves. Y'all have a blessed night. Know that God loves you, and so do we. Bye.